All right, so my door gap is pretty good. Going all the way down. My body line is pretty decent. Door gap coming down, it starts to get a little bit wider down to here. And here is where it overlaps with the rocker panel. Up in the front, it starts to open up, and I actually have a decent sized gap here, about 1/4 of an inch. So as it comes along towards the back, the gap gets smaller and smaller. Here's the gap until it gets and closes up there. The tape line is about where I would want the gap to be. So I'm wondering if I cut this out, if I cut it here along the line, and then inside this groove, inside the seam in here, and then kind of drop the whole thing down a little bit, get the body line here, down to where this tape is, then I could weld this shut, and I'll just only have to do a little bit of body work inside the corner. The rest of it, hello. The rest of it is actually this. Once that's where it's supposed to. Once this is where it's supposed to be, then I could drop the door back inside the rocker panel. This gap are very inconsistent, but that seems to be the way they all are. And on the forums that I went on, they all pretty much say the same thing. They're not going to be perfect. They're trucks. Deal with it. They were never nice in the first place. So that's what I'm thinking. Unless you've got some other words of wisdom, I think if I cut what I say I'm going to cut, I could cut it along in here. And if you look here, that's what I was talking about. If you see how the rocker panel is in and the cab corner is out, if he would have flushed this and then bring it down a tiny bit, none of this would have been a problem. If you see on the straight edge, you got room in there. If he wouldn't have had that gap in there and just did the rocker panel straight up against the cab corner, it would have been absolutely perfect. You can see where it goes through. You can see through that gap. So I figure if I can do that without fucking up the cab corner, I could get away with just painting the rocker panel, and I could even just paint the whole thing from the corner of the exterior, and I could just paint this whole thing. There's a seam up here, I could seam it off. If things really get screwed up, there's a molding that comes around and wraps around here. I could always paint from the molding down and like reverse peak this and just paint this section, or I could paint this. You're only gonna see about 2 inches. I could wave it off into there, blend it, you'll never see it because all this shit gets covered with the bed. So that's pretty much it. Close it. And here it hits. It overlaps. And if you look down, you see it opens up at the end. And that's it, my friend. Let me know what you think.